When the United States of America was founded, one of the most important tasks of the Founding Fathers was ensuring that its citizens would have freedom of speech, including the right to boycott. However, in recent years, there have been rules that have been established that not only outlaw protesting against Israel, but in some cases require a pledge of loyalty to Israel. Now, the Senate is working on a bill that encourages states to discriminate against people in the workplace that engage in formal protest against Israel. So what is this all about, and how is it even possible? Welcome to DC Direct. I'm Lionel Donovan. In this show, we try to tackle the big issues in the U.S., but we want you to weigh in. So feel free to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Ch.13 World. And reach out to us with the hashtag DC Direct and be a part of the conversation. In today's show, we'll be talking about anti-BDS laws. BDS stands for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. These actions are part of a movement that aims to convince companies not to do business with Israel over the country's marginalization of its Palestinian residents. The movement was started by Palestinian activists in Palestine and has since spread across the globe. The movement also calls on consumers to not buy Israeli products and for academics and celebrities to not make appearances in Israel. The BDS movement began in 2005 and was inspired by a similar movement in the 1980s, targeting apartheid in South Africa. BDS opponents like Max Summeroff say the movement is anti-Semitic and that its aim is to destroy Israel's identity as a Jewish state.
The reason there's so much resistance to BDS is because it's a deeply unjust cause. At the end of the day, it's not about changing specific Israeli policies, but about eliminating the state entirely. It actively seeks to shut down dialogue and cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians. It emboldens anti-peace extremists in the region. And in communities around the world where it is active, it fuels hatred and division. It's harmful all around.
So far, laws that target BDS activity have been found in 26 states across the country, and they soon could be getting federal support. These anti-BDS laws have been criticized for infringing on free speech and preventing people from exercising their right to protest. In order to get a better understanding of the BDS movement in relation to the First Amendment, we sat down with Lada Knott, who's the executive director of the First Amendment Center at the Freedom Foreign Institute. So why do you think it's important for the First Amendment to be able to protect the BDS movement and movements like it?
Because it's important that the First Amendment not discriminate based on what the message of the movement is or what the cause is. It's important that everybody have those protections. And I also think that the Supreme Court ruled in a case called NAACP v. Claiborne that boycott is a form of political speech. It's the highest, most protected form of political speech. It's the kind that's meant to enact political change. And I think we can't lose sight of that and how important that is.
Lada also feels that anti-BDS laws could set a dangerous precedent.
Generally, laws that target protest and political dissent, that's not something that we stand for in this country. That usually infringes on the First Amendment. I also worry that it draws a distinction between, it's not the government punishing you for your speech. No, this is just the government refusing to contract with this independent contractor. And I think that's a distinction that's a bit tricky to make because in a lot of cases, these government contracts are the bulk of a business. And if a business is run by a sole proprietor, that's essentially their livelihood, and their political activity as an individual is tied to their livelihood. That to me seems as much government action as denying someone a state benefit that everyone gets because of their political affiliations.
Many people around the country are already feeling the effects of anti-BDS laws. One of those people is Saqib Ali, a former state delegate in the Maryland House of Delegates. Ali is currently suing the state of Maryland over its anti-BDS laws because he believes they're unconstitutional.
Well, I'm a software engineer, and recently the state of Maryland put out an advertisement basically saying that they needed a software engineer to build a website for them that would evaluate life insurance policies. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of software engineering experience. I've been working for 20 years in software engineering. I thought this would be a perfect job for me to work on. But when I looked at the contract to apply for this job, to apply to win the contract, it said that I had to promise not to boycott Israel. And I refused to do that. It's my constitutional right, and so I'm not going to do that.
So the question then becomes, how do these laws make it on the books?
Many Democrats support these bills too, unfortunately. Okay, so what you have a situation is when the entire Republican Party supports a bill and part of the Democratic Party supports a bill, it's very easy to pass the bill through any legislature, especially if the legislature is controlled by Republicans. But if a legislature is 80% Republican and more than half of them all of them support this bill, well, you don't need any Democrats. And even if it's 50-50, if all the Republicans support something and some of the Democrats, well, that becomes a majority. So it's very hard to stop these bills because many legislators say, I support Israel, so I'm going to vote for these bills, without thinking through the ramifications and what consequences it could have.
The U.S. isn't the only country with anti-BDS legislation. Over half a dozen countries, including the UK and France, all have laws that ban BDS activity. Responses to the movement have become just as polarizing as the movement itself. And what started off as a nonviolent form of protest is attracting attention from all over the globe. And it will only set to grow the more the movement does. Well, that's all the time we have today in DC Direct, but please be sure to reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at TRT World. And reach out to us with the hashtag DC Direct and let us know what you think about anti-BDS laws. Until next time, I'm Lionel Donovan.